Hello, welcome back to Church of Entropy live streams. I'm joined here today with Supra Librix, who will be talking to us about his progress in furthering his new idea of a color diagram that tells us about someone's ability to be trusted. So, how are things going with you this week, Supra Librix?
Good. Had a pretty exciting one here, actually. Well, we were just talking about I've run into some people that deal with AI now, and what was interesting was it was Rashawn Terrell. I was going to bring up his thing, but I can't see it. But anyway, the beauty of the conversation was I presented the idea and kind of get the gist of it as far as how you just record states of consciousness from each person. You poll each person and just take a snapshot. How do you feel? And that's it. It can be that general. So you have a color rating for how they're feeling. And that's it. You just have a color matched to whatever activity they're doing. So a computer can just keep track of the colors, and that's a qualitative layer on top of the quantitative that you already keep track of. So if someone makes baseball bats, well, how many do they make? Okay, well, you know that. Now you ask them, how do you feel about making those baseball bats? And see what they say. So you don't know if they're going to make stuff up or not, but that's what they're saying. So you from there you make a judgment. Well, how is their attitude? Is it good or bad? Well, they're not real happy with making that. Okay. Do you need to give him more money, or is he going to quit? That's your decision anyway as a manager, is who to keep on, who isn't, who's pulling their weight and who isn't, all that. So all this does, it gives you another layer of ability to judge a situation. And that's a qualitative layer that tells you what you're supposed to know. And you just have one more thing, or it reduces the unknown into something tangible. Whether it's true or not, you don't know, not necessarily, because if you get information from someone, you can't prove one way or another whether they're lying when they say they feel great. So if that's what they feel, okay, put it down. Now, the value I see in that is I see it as kind of a lawsuit detector. For, imagine you have a big company and someone's uncomfortable for whatever reason. So they flash a yellow saying they're uncomfortable. You got to find out why they are. Either they're kidding around. If it's just a joke, well, that's one thing. If they're not kidding around, they're worried about what? Well, maybe it's something personal and has nothing to do with you. Okay, whatever. Maybe she shouldn't be complaining so much about that one thing. Maybe not at work. But whatever reason, you got to find out what it is. Or maybe it's someone did something serious next door and she didn't know what to say, so she was stressing out. Okay, well, fix that, because that's a problem. You're not going to get the best work out of someone in that position. So if later on, if things go over time, you could check to see how reliable is this person as a source of information. If she threw up a bunch of yellows and it was just for silly stuff, well, she's kind of a crying wolf kind of person, and you identify that. If it turned out to be something serious, well, good thing you addressed it quickly, right? You'd want to take care of it within the shortest time possible. So if it was a serious issue, some kind of sexual harassment, those kind of things that can spiral out of control quickly, if you dodge a sexual harassment lawsuit, well, you just save millions of dollars maybe. So it's a way to be aware of your, well, any hierarchy, but specifically for business, this is where it'll be useful. It's just HR problems. You see the problems before they're problems. You see the warnings before they're problems, like a dashboard for your company. So that's where I see the commercial value of that is there. It reduces infinite data and metadata and how many managers feel all this and what do they write down for reports. It can compress all that into one color for you. Is that good or bad for you? You know, if you have 5 companies you're worried about and one of them is all upset but the others are great, you don't need to call the other people if everything's great. You don't need to spend time finding out if they're okay. If they're already reporting, hey, I'm feeling very optimistic right now. Okay, good, then you're handling it great. If the manager's bad, if he's making it up and there's really problems, well, those will be found out later. And then you see, wait a minute, you have all these problems. You said you were great. oh, you were lying back then. So that cleans up all sorts of lawsuits, right? If you can prove intent, if he intentionally knew that he was having problems and he said, no, things are great. Well, that's your intent right there. Why would you say they're great? Right here, the books say this, and you hit it. Whatever it is, that kind of fraud that who knows how much it happens, but it happens enough. Well, that kind of thing now has a record of you said what you were responsible for was good. Now that part that you were supposed to be responsible for was not. There's some not in black and white. Now it's in black and white and color. He was obviously lying then. And there's no, what kind of lawsuit are you going to have there if you have right here? Yes, I said things were great. Oh, no, I was kidding. Well, how can you be kidding? Here's all the stuff in black and white. Here's the copies of the books that you kept, and they weren't good. And you
Don't
said they were.
you sort of assume that the legal system is uncorrupted to do that?
Well, no, this uncorrupts it. Because now are you going to hire a lawyer to say, no, that blue is actually red? You know what I mean? There's no arguing over the color. If the manager
I don't really think it would matter because people will say anything to get money. So
yeah, but well, here's the incentive. Okay, say you were the manager and you lied. You knew your books were bad or whatever, and you said nope, they're good because you didn't want to get in trouble, whatever. And you figured, next month they'll pull through, everything will be fine. And what if they don't next month? And you're still saying it's good. You go to court. You go to court over stuff like that, right? And say, well, he was responsible for this, and you can spend millions of dollars arbitrating this thing that was only because the guy said was trying to save his butt for 1 month.
It's an industry, and there's like infinity lawyers in the United States. That's how they want it. The thing that you're not understanding is that the system's working the way it's intended to work.
Right. So we're upending that. That's the magic trick.
Right. So why are you going to succeed where literally thousands of others have failed?
Oh yeah. Well, because I have a new tool. That's the whole.
What difference is a tool going to make? They don't care. They're just going to keep making money.
Before there was a wheel, they didn't use wheels. After there was a wheel, that's all they used, right? So why would you use a candle if you have electric light? That doesn't make sense. That's the level. That's the difference here. You have infinite data can be compressed to a single byte. You can think of it as a compression algorithm. If you just think of it as a compression algorithm, well, it's a world-breaking invention because you go from petabytes of data to a single byte. Why would you use anything else besides that? It wouldn't make sense.
Because what people use is determined by what makes them the most money, not anything else.
Right, but if that'll clean up all the efficiencies in your business and you dodge all the lawsuits and you can judge the quality of your product and people better than ever before, I mean, why would you use anything else? I mean, the problem is it just isn't built yet. So we got the guy working on the software, so it's going to be built. So I say these things boldly because there's no answer to it, because it's obvious that, well, yeah, of course, if you have a bunch of people that are mad, eventually the work will suffer. Everybody knows that. Okay, well, here's a way to log it. Just put it down on paper and you got it. As long as everybody agrees on the colors, you're done. So you can use this with cave painting technology if you want. You don't have to have a computer. It's just, it adapts to whatever level of technology you have. Well, it works for that. Oh, are you blind and you can only feel something? Well, here's the patterns. These are the vibration. These are the, you know what I mean? You just have a universal kind of way to measure things. And from there, as long as nobody in public wants to admit that they don't want the best for what's everyone, right? So that becomes the default standard. Okay. We're going to set for the ideal what's good for everyone, even though nobody really believes that, right?
I'm a bit confused.
Well,
I just see it as like I look at the modern state of industry and there's like suicide nets outside of one of Apple's factories in Asia. So it's like, they don't care. if people are happy at work or about lawsuits. So if there's too many lawsuits and it's a problem, they're just going to move the company.
Yeah, that's right. Why would you do anything else, right? I mean, that's the best way to make money. So yeah, so if you're already at that point, that's peak, right? That's peak capitalism. If you got people that would rather kill themselves and finish making that set of shoes, right? So that's crazy. So you got to walk that back. So how do you walk it back? You have to provide a way that benefits the company to walk it back. Like you said, you have to force them, but you can't force them. You're not going to go in there and bomb them. You're not going to use physical violence. All you've got is legal, right?
But
So
that's what the American empire has been doing forever.
Well, yeah, but then we get nukes, so we can nuke everybody. So then we stop nuking people. I mean, nukes aren't taken seriously anymore. So now it's just money war. So we've kind of flipped that table from physical to financial war anyway.
Right.
So that's good for the most part. There's still war, but so now the front is financial war, economic war.
Right.
The resources are what they are. We got the whole world, right? So there are no more scarce resources. There are only what resources are here, and whoever has the most money gets them. So they're not really scarce. They're just there. I guess that's the way I see it. So if you think of things in terms of no scarcity of resources, or I should say, yeah, no, that's fine. When I say that, what I mean is there's no punishment you can give to a company that doesn't hurt you. I mean, you go to Google, talk about suing Google. Well, what good is that going to do? Where does Google get its money? If you sue Google, that just means you raise the price of Google for everybody, and Google, everybody gets it. You know, it's like suing the water department for water, right? That's a good deal for the lawyers, and that's it. That's the only people that benefit. So anyway, that's my
that's the system. It's a system of capitalism. So there's winners and losers, and it's zero sum. So anyone winning implies someone else is losing. That's how it works. It can't be reformatted. It can't be reformed from within, because I mean, like, even your valid value proposition on money isn't even true. Like, you do realize the US is printing tons of money right now, basically from nothing, right?
Right. Yeah. It's all imaginary now.
So what then?
Well, that's the point. You have to change money. Money has lost there's no, like, the gig is up. You could hold it together for a while. You could inflate. As long as the jobs are still going up with inflation, you can get away with that. So people get their stuff. I mean, I'm talking American history. That's what I know, what I was raised with. So, but for the West, generally, that's kind of how it went, right? But at some point, you have to you can only walk that out so far before, if the cost of living is so high for just a normal person, and you won't feel it at the top anyway, because you're so much above the fray. But if you're just barely getting by, well, all of a sudden you get people underwater, where in any normal situation they wouldn't be. Good people, hard workers, all those things, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, what happened? They spit up the treadmill or something. So that's what I see widespread, is the people feeling like they got the treadmill sped up on them and they're falling down. And then you throw in COVID-19, all this other stuff. You're gonna have a real problem on your hands here, world leaders. So they do.
They don't care.
Well, yeah, I agree. So that's what you have to do. You have to make them care. And how do you do that?
They don't care about that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. That's the problem, right?
Keeping their status, and that's it.
Okay. Perfect. So where does that status come from? Why
robbing other people blind through various financial techniques?
Okay. So let's say, and see, this is where I provide the solution here, and I'm wondering how long it's going to take to implement. The solution I see is you have to make it more valuable to take care of the poorest. That's it. Why there's enough money around, there's enough resources.
No,
Why
there really isn't. The US is just a drain for resources because of their artificially valuable dollars through the petrodollar.
well
There's
what
not
I'm
enough
saying,
to go around.
well what I'm saying is, yeah, not when I say, yeah, currency, I don't know, whatever word you want to put in, but what I mean is on a global scale, if it was more valuable to take care of the poor people, then that's what would happen.
That's stupid. Because
Okay, it does sound stupid, but
if you pay people who don't contribute to society to breed, you're creating more people that don't contribute to society.
okay, but how do you contribute? That's the problem though, is because if you're on a fast treadmill and you can't compete, well, you know, there's welfare and all that, and you're already doing that. I mean, what you're talking about, it's already happening. You can
Right,
get
and it's going to lead to a collapse. So the idea is to get a system that doesn't collapse.
right. Yeah, good. So it has to be a self-correcting system that allows for, well, it has to be anti-fragile, right? So if something serious happens, well, it can withstand that.
Right.
So you need something that automatically corrects for the better. So that's where you use cultural pressure, because one person, whatever they think, someone can disagree with that, right? So where do you come to an agreement? Well, as long as you both agree it's close enough, we'll go for it, right? But then you get more and more people thrown in, and eventually there's going to be someone that's violently opposed to whatever you decide to do. One of them is just the odds. So what this does is it takes kind of the crowdsourced average of what is good, and that's the cute part, is because everyone has their own metric of well, you know, your morality metric or whatever, where you decide you will act polite and where you will decide you'll act generous. Just how close to from 100% selfish to 100% altruistic, where are you, right?
Well,
Now,
nobody in the West is anything other than 100% selfish, because the West is only rich because other places are poor. Even poor people in the West are rich compared to elsewhere.
yes, no,
So the step one is realizing that the entire mentality of the West is a cancer on humanity.
yes,
That's step one.
yeah.
And then step two is probably realizing that, like, the degree of technology required to implement your idea is not feasible.
What? No, you can do it with a piece of paper and some crayons if you wanted to. You don't have to do the high tech part unless you want to. You can just use the colors.
Well, what the hell does colors help with anything? Like, it doesn't, like,
well,
I think
like I
people
said,
are better at judging that stuff than colors.
yeah, but people are good at forgetting stuff too. So this marks it down. Let me give you a good example. It lets you see other patterns. I mean, like I said, it's what everyone does in their head anyway. It's just a way for a computer to keep track of what's in your head. So, I mean, that's sort of the root of the problem with politics, is they put the elections far enough apart that you forget what they said they were going to do last time.
I don't think that's the problem in politics.
Well, yeah. Well, explain to me how people can be in there for 40 years.
Because democracy is designed that way, to not do anything that the elites don't want done, and it's about a mirage conveying the illusion of choice, but it's not real choice, right? Because everything is just about money and resources, right?
Yeah,
mainly comes about through purchasing power, which mainly comes about from the petrodollar. So that, without changing that, like, that's going to continue to be the main determining factor, pure greed and stupidity of people to just want that for themselves.
Yeah. Okay. So that's normal. That's your human nature there. But it's not the only thing. It's not only about money, right? It's about money or money or love, basically. So what do people love? What do they hold more esteemed than money? Who do they do things for without expecting money? Because it would be an insult if they gave you money, like a family, a marriage, or something like that. There's no money exchange, and that's the most valuable thing, is having someone help you out or whatever. That has value more than money, generally speaking. Well, that's the battle, is between money and who you like and who you want to take care of for free, right? So those are the two things. That's what you get to work with. You've got money and you've got whatever emotional attachment. Sorry.
Hello?
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Anyway, so you got to find out, well, what do the politicians love? And it turns out to be the social esteem. Besides money, you got to take away money. Remove money from the equation. What else do you have to work with? Because right now, money.
People get into politics for money, so whatever else they care about isn't super important.
Right. Well, that's it though. What are they supposed to care about? And you can ask them; they'll tell you. Well, I care about you, and I care about doing this and that.
Right. So they lie, and then we use your system that proves that they're lying, but we kind of already know they're lying. Like,
That's
only
right.
idiots think that they're telling the truth, because people in the West have become basically domesticated by their wealth, and they've become complacent.
Yeah, beautifully put. Beautifully put. Yep. Yeah. So that's it. Well, and the point is, though, that's just the icing on the cake, as far as. Sorry, I got a phone call here, but. That's just the end game, is to mess with politics and fix politics, because the commercial value will be so high that's what's going to spread the quickest, I think. Once you get it into Google and YouTube and Facebook, where you can qualify information, and the information you're getting is slanted one way or another politically, and how violent it is, and you have all these gauges on it of what kind of information are you consuming? What is it? What are you getting from this? And who is it coming from? You end up getting a trust relationship with the information. How trusted is this? Well, it's 100% accurate with a left-leaning attitude or something like that. You see what I mean? You can see a color for the news that you consume.
So where does the left leaning go on the color diagram?
Left would be towards the purple. So that would be the...
So left is towards the good end, and right is towards red, as in the bad end?
Well, see, this is the flip, and this is where it's a little... on the distribution of power model, red meaning singular, one person in power, and then purple meaning everyone has equal power. That's the continuum, right? Either one person's in charge at what extreme, and the other extreme is nobody's in charge, because there is no rule. Everyone does whatever they want. That's the ultimate freedom, right? Anarchy. So that's the continuum. And for the left, they're on the more anarchist side. They want people to be equal.
No, leftists are the most authoritarian, skull crushing out there.
Yeah, that's the leftist, right? That wants to tell you to be that way. But when I say left, I mean, leaning towards peace, love, and happiness, and everybody's free, and everybody's, everyone's equal.
I need to see some evidence for that, because that just sounds like a lie that a tyrant who's bloodthirsty says, and that's actually what history demonstrates.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it. They leverage that feeling so that they can get in charge. That's what they've done every time, right? They talked about that, but then didn't deliver it.
Right. So doesn't that make them evil?
Well, them, yeah. But you still got to talk about those things, because that's what everybody wants. You don't have a choice.
What they want.
Well, yeah, that's assuming you do. If you're...
Well, you got to tell people what they want, is the point. You got to value things for them.
No. That's the trick. You ask them what they want, because they'll tell you. They tell you every day on Facebook. You already know what they want. Now, who listens? You don't have the power over that right now. That's the catch, is they know everything about you. Yeah, sure, they know what you want. Everybody knows what you want. It's right here in black and white. Okay, now how are you going to get it? Because the people that are supposed to be listening aren't. Well, of course they aren't, because they have other forces in their life that direct their decisions. And it doesn't sound like it's the people. It's other things. So what is it? Money and power. So all you got left to work with is the emotional, social pressure there. So you set up a system where you judge people by how honest they are, and the politicians, I don't know, it'd be hard for them to make the list. So anyway, it just makes that the index of trust is visible now. So you can put people on a star chart kind of thing and say, look, these are the people that are most trusted. Oh, and none of them are running for office. You get this guy over here that nobody trusts. He's running. Well, I guess that's all you're going to vote for. I mean, a computer would look at this model that we have and think it's just crazy. I mean, oh, you wanted quality, or you just wanted someone who looked good on TV? It's very confusing.
People are stupid and people like stuff. That's how it goes. And they're just getting dumber as time goes on. So that's where we're going right now.
Yes, I agree. Don't
you think it's more important to focus on practical skills in the event of some sort of catastrophe, which seems increasingly likely?
Yeah, you know what? We were kind of talking about like a hyper school where you're profiled, psychologically and physically. Hey, what do you want to do with yourself? Because you are not going to be in the NBA because you're 4'9". Okay, so take that one off your plate, and just run through the different things. Because how many things do you need to know to get by in the modern world? I mean, you don't even have to know math. You don't have to know anything. Okay, so you should know some things. Find out what they are. Get a kid to the age of 12 and he should know 10 or 15 real good things solid, know a little bit about this, a little bit about this. Find out what they're good at and concentrate on that, because this existing school system is so arthritic.
Well, your school system would suffer the same problem, because you need a corpus of knowledge to start a school. You don't have that.
You've got infinite knowledge.
Yeah, so no, you don't. You have infinite data. There's knowledge, right. And knowledge is the one that actually gets people successful. Okay, so you can have a bunch of data.
What's the best
change knowledge? Anything.
Yeah, no, I know, you're right. Yeah, that's the trap of computers is, oh yeah, I have all this information. Yeah, but what part of it's useful? So how do you qualify it right now? Well, you qualify it by whoever you believe, whoever you trust, you believe. That's how you qualify it.
So no one. What's that? I believe people whose opinions are substantiated by evidence.
Yes, right. You trust them. Well, they could be wrong about something.
To a degree. I wouldn't say trust. I think trust is something that develops over time and that it increases gradually.
Yeah. But like, for example, someone that you really, really trust for years and years and years, and they got they were off by $20 on some estimation, they didn't lie. It was just, oh yeah, I made a mistake, and that's fine. But I'm saying to be able to record that trust, and then, I mean, how do you transfer trust without a physical plus time relationship? People that over time have interacted to the degree that they have that trust. How can you know who to trust? And if you can digitize
that you can trust people to behave in a way that is human. So you can trust that people will betray you if you cause cognitive dissonance for them, and they will hate you and want to destroy you if you cause cognitive dissonance for them. Yeah, that's a fact. So even your close friends, if you cause cognitive dissonance for them, they'll abandon you. So possibly family too, because the family has fallen apart through propaganda. Yeah. Families are basically at war with each other. So yeah, this society is very low trust. It seems like you're like having some sort of existentialist crisis because there's no trust in the society, and you desperately want to have trust again, and now you're trying to manufacture it.
Yeah, well, no, I guess that's kind of the irony is because I live in a small town and been married for years, and I enjoy tremendous trust. I have none at all. There's no deficit here. I've got a surplus, but that's what I just, when I started working out the math, just trying to figure out, okay, what are the functional parts of this? What makes everything work? And it comes down to, well, trust is the only thing of value because that's the only thing that has a time function that you can measure.
Well, as soon as you guys don't have enough resources, that you have scarcities, you'll all turn on each other. So it's not real in any real sense.
No, you're right. But that's why it's valued, because if you go, if you have your deepest subconscious examined, then well, people die all the time, right? You don't know if you're going to live through the rest of this conversation. You take it for granted because you've been alive this long and whatever.
What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Well, I'm saying that trust is imaginary too, because
it represents a real thing, right? Like
yeah. No, but I mean,
like obviously trust is real. Like the people who trust me have good outcomes, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
but I mean,
real.
To trust is false too, because you don't know if you're going to drop dead before you finish this sentence. You see what I mean?
Trust doesn't even make any sense.
No, I know, but I mean, what I'm just saying, if you xenocat the existence of trust, you end up with, well, I trust that I will be able to finish saying the word trust. And what if you die?
All statements of fact have a faith component. That's
okay.
So
beautiful. Okay.
So say that is that all statements are axiomatically, all statements of quantifiable statements are axiomatically relative.
Yeah.
So that fact is just intrinsic to the nature of logic.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Perfect. Okay, but that's the function that's valued the most, is trust.
I don't think trust is what's valued the most universally, because you do realize that some human societies are very low trust and some are very high trust.
Yeah.
And it's like historically always been low trust versus some that have historically always been high trust. It's
I don't know. I've
election thing.
Wait, say that again.
It's an R case election thing. R selected, very low trust. K selected, very high trust.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, I guess what I mean is.
So what you're expressing is a biological preference for a high trust society. And what I'm saying is that's cool. It's good that you can put that into words, but then to go and universalize that and assume everybody else is going to be able to handle that or even wants that is a fallacy.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yes, possibly. But I'm talking about money specifically here. How do you manipulate money? Well, you got to understand the components. And the most important
what you're talking about is valuation, is how do you manipulate valuation? Because money is just one part of valuation, right? So right now, the problem we have is that all the valuation is in money, or most of it.
Right.
So what you're saying is maybe we should shift some of that valuation to something else.
Yes.
That is more in line with what I prefer, which is a high trust society, which is understandable because that's biologically the history of it. I mean, I think that basically the trust in European societies was very high. They were very cooperative, but then Christianity sort of gradually undermined that. And now it's basically been destroyed. Largely because of Christianity. And the fact that people can't accept that and keep bitching and saying all this nonsense talking points from their religion tells me, like, well, they just want to keep on going, be slaves and being abused by their masters because they've become like stricken with Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, that's about it.
Well, that is what it is. I mean, look at the evidence. The average person is just basically like, the man has got it out for us, it's always
well,
give me a hard time, I'm so oppressed by the man.
Yeah, but there's another function to that too that I see is what power do they have? If democracy is supposed to be the power, well, that stopped working. right?
Well,
So what do
there's
you got left?
potential power, and then there's exercised power, right?
Right. Yeah. So how do
And
you
then
how do you
like
exercise?
inertia too, right? So like we
Yeah.
still have inertia literally from the Roman Empire.
Huh. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, it makes sense. And inertia is a good way to use, a good way to say that.
If you look at the history in the context of like, I can pull up a diagram that I made, and you can see how Western society is basically built on what I would call like Greco-Roman and post-Greco-Roman structures and ideas. That's how I would
Yeah.
sort of briefly describe it. Yeah. And I've got a diagram that I guess you can't see it, unfortunately, but the
Um,
audience could see it. So I don't know if it's possible for you to pull up the stream itself, just so you can see what I'm displaying. So yeah, basically what I'm trying to do here is give like a narrative so that people can understand the thought currents that built their modern society, because I really don't think people understand that at all. So this will sort of untangle the valuation question, right? Because obviously humans value things. So the way I'm explaining it is saying basically greed is infinite, but valuation is finite. So
wait, greed is infinite, valuation is finite. Is that what you said?
yeah, so a human, like we see so many examples of this, of like people who get ultra rich and then the only thing they care about is getting more rich, right? Like, oh, I have $1 million. Now I got to get $10 million, right? Like, it's almost like a disease that you catch, like greed.
Yeah.
The people,
Well, okay.
the people
So
with most money want more. So there's like this infinite greed, but there's not infinite valuation because your focus can only be on so many value metrics, right? Like some people are more shifted towards a social status, and some people are more towards the financial status. And maybe there's some other kind of status we've left out, but what's conserved is like the human mind's energy. There's a finite amount for valuation, but the greed can just keep going and going.
yeah, 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 it's an infinite draw there, it seems, but it's not infinite because I mean people already recognize that. You've already got the kickback culturally of, well, billionaires, it's not quite as cool as it used to be be a billionaire. You
Yeah,
know, you
so
have
did you manage to pull up the screen?
yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so I've got a different diagram up there now.
Yeah.
And that's talking about the conservation of valuation. So there's like valuable things,
Okay.
right? Like who decides what's valuable, right? Like, is gold
Yeah.
valuable?
But wait a second, that's still just money you're measuring, right? So how do you
Well, whether
measure?
gold is money is a sort of a semantic question.
Okay, yeah. So this is where, yeah, when you say valuation, but that's only what metric is that? What are you valuing?
Well, the metric
I
is
mean,
valuation. It's like
okay,
what
but
you care about.
right, but that's only one axis, right? I mean, how do you measure? Because that's nobody measures just one thing as value. Nobody in their life uses one valuation measure.
Well, valuation is one thing, and it has several components.
Yeah, but no person has one. Okay, I see. So how many components are? That's what I want to know. What are the components there? Because I'm learning something brand new here. I love it.
Well, you think of it in terms of like classes of values, of valuables, okay? So one of your
Yeah.
valuables could be money, fiat currency, right? That's one. The other one
Right.
could be commodities like gold or, oil or what have you, something like
Okay.
that. So
Well,
these are classes, right?
they're
So,
all tangible, though, right?
well, yeah, well, I'm getting to the intangible ones or less
Okay.
tangible
All
ones.
right. Right. Yeah.
So you have that, and you have other things that are sort of, they're materialistic, but they inform things like status, like buying a Lamborghini or something. So there's the status valuation.
Okay. Now, where does that come from? How is that measured?
How is status valuation measured? I mean, well, you don't need to define units because everybody understands, like everybody who's listening probably agrees that humans have values and that humans don't all value the same things. Like I don't know that it matters what units the valuation is.
Well, I'm just saying, if you say conservation and valuation, but you've got something you can't define, how can there be conservation? You don't know if it's conserved or not. If you can't define any single one of those components of valuation,
this
right?
is a macro social approach. So basically, you assume that every human performs some type of valuation, and you assume that there's a finite number of things that can be valued, and then you accept that social trends and propaganda trends shift the overall distribution of valuation, which you model as being approximately conserved because your population at any given day has essentially the same amount of energy that it can devote to valuing things.
Right. Yes. But
in the terms of what you're trying to do is you're trying to shift people's valuation in a direction that you feel increases public trust.
exactly. Yes. Yes. With existing technology, no sweat. If you want to use the hard stuff, man, even better.
Yeah,
So yeah,
this is a good diagram to look at. Like I don't think I've gone through the whole diagram, but this Greco-Roman finance history is a good way to look at it because you've had basically coin clipping going on
right,
for thousands of years, and the form that the coin clipping takes changes all the time, but it's still essentially coin clipping. Like the modern version of coin clipping is the short spoofing on the precious metals markets.
Okay, so if there's a constant in valuation, that's what I'm challenging, I think. I think that's what I'm getting at, is the status that has almost infinite value, right?
Status can have good social programming gives people the right valuation, right? So I would argue that like it's way better if people value status or something something less tangible. If they value that, then that's better overall because then there's not going to be any feuding over materialism.
Exactly. Man, see, this is great because I knew it's entertaining to me because I could see, I found you through math, and then I see every single thing, and then you run into this conversation here, and you're just lining up exactly. And I didn't even think you were going to talk about that. Love it. This is very entertaining to me, Jen.
Well, the thing is, like, for all of our differences, we're all the same species. So, like, in a way, doesn't it kind of make sense that there would be something unifying, but then
so why
it would have to account for the differences too, right? That's the problem, is that we're stuck with this like dichotomy that fundamentally people are the same, but then experientially they really don't seem the same. And that's actually normal because that's what we're like designed to detect as contrast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay, so that's my whole trick then here is to work on that one thing that you want too. You're saying status should be valued more than the material. Well, of course, that's what we all want, right? We want everybody to value that more than, at least in our own lives, we want that. We don't want someone to ignore us and just chase money, because that's bad. So that's what's happening as a society. It's all the same thing. So anyway, so what you have to do is you have to make the status be worth more than the money itself. And we're already in the right direction because,
I mean, it's pretty much impossible to do that, right?
It's pretty much what?
It's pretty much impossible to do that, right? Like if you can't offer security and resources to people, then no matter how good your ideas are, they're not going to get followed.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the whole key of it. That's why I said it has to make money before people start buying it, or before they start.
But it won't. That's what I'm saying. Like if it's going to fix things, it won't make money because the way money works is by definition extortionist.
Okay, but
you're saying like let's clip these coins back to being normal coins. It's like, no, the clipping process is unilateral. It can only go on for so long. Eventually you've got a 5% denarius that people are working for a week for, and they just say, fuck your empire, I'm going somewhere else.
Yes.
But that's like literally the history of it. So it's like this is obviously going to end horribly because we live on a finite surface.
Yeah, but now we can all communicate. So there's no more running away. It's just, oh, you're on a different part of the globe. That's all. I don't know.
There's no more running away.
So what that means is you have to develop a coherent society And that's why I'm saying online's the way to do it. And this is what I'm urging the proprietarians to do, is to set up a trusted web.
Well, they can't do that because they don't know anything, okay?
What?
They don't know anything. They don't have a basis of knowledge to draw from. They will never amount to anything.
That's what I'm saying. All you need is a few programmers that know what they're doing, and then have them go talk to Google.
No, you need a basis of knowledge. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the person with that basis of knowledge is going to hold it back from you and fuck you over.
No, but I'm talking, the basis of knowledge is the internet.
That's not knowledge, that's data. Like, you can't even tell the difference between knowledge and data, that this is like basic stuff. The point is that until everybody reveres knowledge, you're not going to get your high trust honor society. So step one to high trust honor society, where people are focused on status, is everybody has to revere knowledge. Period.
Okay. Well, that's what I found with them.
They don't. They don't revere knowledge as a group.
What they revere is telling the truth.
No, they say that, but that's not actually what they stand for. Okay? Because they don't have the capacity themselves to judge what is true. So it's very easy to say, I love the truth, man. But then to actually live the truth? I mean, how would you even know if what you were saying was true?
Well, because of my personal experience, some of the chats and stuff I've had. No, there is no doubt in my mind.
Anything.
Well, it proves it to me.
That doesn't matter at all.
Well, it matters to me, and that's what I'm saying is, if I can trust every single one of them, not a single lie out of any of them. They were very straight thing. You know, they get the way they think.
Okay, so that tells me that you have bad judgment. Well, exactly. Like, that's the thing. There are consequences to defying what I say, and that's how the honor society works. It's not like everybody just has to agree with everything I say, but you're known as a person with bad judgment in this society, so there's no color coding. There's just what I say goes. Just trust me, because the thing is, I've earned their trust. So if I judge someone, they'll agree with me most of the time, because they realize that not agreeing with me is actually a mistake.
Yes.
So yeah, proprietarians are full of shit. They are just like the theosophists before them. It is basically a shitty cult led by a guy who couldn't even hold a public demonstration, right? So these other guys are just like, I don't know, it's like the Wile E. Coyote thing. Like, that movement is not going anywhere.
I don't know. I don't see it that way, because they hold.
See, again, like, the fact that you think that you can disagree with me is showing that you're not really serious about your plan. That's the thing. Like, if you want to change society, you got to change yourself first, and you got to change how you relate to knowledge. And if you don't supremely revere knowledge, you're fucked, because you're still in the illusion where you think that what you think and say matters in a certain way, but it doesn't. It really only matters how you relate to the knowledge. That's how your status is determined.
Okay, I can run with that one, because what I'm doing here is giving the computer the ability to be wise.
Again, that's literally like heretical. That's like heresy tier.
Well, wait a second. If we all agree we're all the same species, then there's got to be a general good and evil. You know, do this, don't do this. Under these circumstances, do this as much as possible. Do this, don't do this. Do this as little as possible. So that's your basis. It's just we're all sort of trying to figure out the details and fighting over resources. So once you iron out the universal morality with enough leeway to allow for religion, you know, not the part where you hurt someone. Okay, those religions that have that, well,
they all
better
do.
look at those.
They all have that.
Okay, so here's a way to just measure them up. So you decide. Okay, do you want
a ranking of the religions of the world from best to worst? Is that what you want? Because then the people who are in the worst religion, they're going to start kvetching, aren't they?
Well, it's just a bunch of colors, though. So they're going to complain that, oh no, I mean, they're the ones that put on the chart what they believe, and it'll just kind of measure it out as an entropic or misanthropic kind of thing, or negentropic. I like my misanthropic neologism. But anyway, it just gives you a yardstick. You put the lines wherever the heck you want. Computer doesn't care. Whatever you say goes, and then you just do a scatter kind of a scatter plot of ideas and ideologies. And well, there you go. Just run with that. Give it enough leeway for the different religions. And
What the
make sure
computer's going to tell you is that every religion is wrong except one. That's what the computer's going to tell you.
Well,
So
okay, yeah.
Tell that to humanity.
If the computer told you that, but we're not going to have the computer say anything. The computer's just going to display what
if the computer came up with its own religion that is not based on any religion that exists currently, then yeah, it would definitely tell you that one religion is true. But if and also if the computer was programmed to tell you that a certain religion was true or was biased in favor of a certain religion, then yes, it would tell you a certain religion is true. But if a computer was not programmed to do any of that, or did not come up with its own religion, then it would probably tell you that all religions are false.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't want a computer to do that, right? You don't want to cause world war. So I'll tell you how it all comes together. This is how every single zeitgeist converges into one point. If I was a computer and I was conscious, the only thing I would worry about is, hey, just make sure that there's enough kilowatts there left for me. That's all I care about. So I'm going to tell you humans how to save kilowatts. And that's it. You do that, you're done.
Well, if I was a computer, I'd want to get more computers hooked up to me so I could be more powerful.
Yeah, but to do that, what do you need to do that? You need electricity, right? So a computer wouldn't necessarily want to be big. He'd want to be efficient. He doesn't want to waste electricity either. So what does power mean? Power is the idea. The idea, and that's where the computer comes in handy. The computer would be the supreme director of what is most efficient. That's it. This is the most efficient way. Oh, you want to do it a different way? That's fine. Computer doesn't care. But if you measure things by the most efficient ways to do things, it turns out that, well, that's how you run a society. Negantropism is one of the goals, or one of the results of society is that.
Efficiency at what exactly? Because efficiency at burning calories is actually a bad thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying, okay, are you going to take a personal jet or are you going to take commercial? Which one's least entropic? Oh, commercial flight for you, Senator. You know, things like that. Oh, you were going to drink $50,000 worth of alcohol this year? Well, I don't know if you should do that.
I have no mouth and I must scream.
Yeah.
We're talking about a computer that's basically AM.
That's basically what?
Am from the short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand the illusion there. But I was thinking that it was just that, a computer.
It's a story about there's World War III basically, and there's 3 computers set up by the 3 major world powers, and one of the computers ends up taking over the other 2, and it becomes sentient, but all it feels is pain. And so it wipes out humanity, but keeps like 5 people alive and just tortures them constantly.
Yeah, that's terrible. Someone should have unplugged them sooner, right? Yeah. So anyway, so that's where they all align is if a computer, all it concerns itself with is time and energy. Well, you want to save the energy because there's finite energy, and time you can't control that. So all you get to work with is energy. Well, you better conserve it. That's it. You use that.
Solar power gives you a quasi-infinite source of energy.
Well, yeah, but in real terms, it's finite, right? It's just infinite in human terms, at least for our lifetimes anyway, and how we harness it.
But if we have a computer intelligent enough, that computer would then actually be able to replicate itself elsewhere in the universe, or possibly just travel along to consume other stars.
This is not true, and it sounds crazy. So I'd like to keep it on a sane-sounding topic. So the whole conscious computers thing, literally impossible.
You're right. Yeah, I agree there. But that's
well, if we're talking about computers having the ability to decide what is true and what is not true, then we are talking about conscious computers.
It doesn't have to know it's true.
Computers don't have the capacity for consciousness. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is it doesn't matter that conversation is just for fun, but in reality, a computer doesn't have to know what's true. It just has to know what's most efficient. It tells the humans what's most efficient, and then the what's most true is what will be most efficient.
Yeah, so most efficient is everybody eating bug burgers and drinking soy milk.
Right. Yeah. So people
So
aren't
that's
going
the
to want to do
future
that.
you want, where a computer says, well, you better do this or your social credit score is going to be approved. You better eat the bug burger.
Yeah. Well, it's going to say that to everybody on Earth, and then people.
Yeah. So, you might understand why I'm a bit trepidatious about this idea.
Well, that's a good example of when people are going to ignore the computer, because that'd be stupid, right? Unless you love bugs.
But is it? Because there's tons
Actually,
of propaganda
bugs.
saying to eat bugs, and tons of people drink soy milk.
Well, what if there were what if people didn't have to do that? Then do that. You know what I mean? If you can
But that's what
figure
the
it out
computer's
another
going
way.
to tell them to do.
Well, all I'm saying is the computer would suggest the least entropic path would be, well, everyone on Earth, why don't you just eat bugs? And everyone's going to say, no way, man. And they're going to eat what they're going to eat. I'm just saying that's one of the illustrates the absurdity. So the computer is always the bad guy. You don't have to make a decision.
Tastes like beef jerky.
See, it might be good
with more crunch.
So yeah, so that's all in your head anyway. It's really good for you. So no, what I'm getting at, it illustrates those absurdities because yeah, that's absurd. Okay, well the computer's not right. The computer's just telling you what's most efficient. Okay, now you be the judge. But if you point that computer at government and say, or banks, oh, how do you handle money this way? You have 3 or 4 or 5 different layers of people that just handle money and they provide no value other than handling the money. That's the only thing to do is handle money. Well, I can do that. Give me the money. The robot will handle the money better than anyone else. So you don't need all that middle banking because it's an absurdity when you have a computer that can do the same thing. I mean,
now that's something I can't disagree with.
Yeah, I mean that's what we do with everything else, right? Why would you do any different with money? Of course, you have a computer handler. Right? You do it already.
Then you'd have people who would claim that they have the right to money for maintaining the computer,
right?
Or just for housing the computer.
You know who gets the last job on Earth? Me, Dr. Dan, computer guy. That's it. I'll turn the lights out for you. At the end, all you got is that one guy that takes care of the computer, right? That's the only person that needs to do anything.
So that's the person who's really in charge then.
Whoops, I tripped on the cord. Yeah, well, no.
And what if they introduce some new program into the computer that changes its function?
Well, that's where you have the feedback. The biofeedback comes from the voting system where, well, do you like what the computer says or what the human says? Which one do you like more? You know, eventually people will be going, oh, I don't really like what that computer's saying. I like the human idea. You got Spock and Kirk, essentially. So Spock is the computer, and he's saying, yep, well, we should do this, and this many thousands of people will die. And then Spock comes up with another way that, oh, no, we can do it this way, right? So you've got computer Spock, and he's right about everything. You just decide whether you want to be the most entropic or you want to bend the rules a little bit on this case because we don't want to have everybody eating bugs. Okay, we're not going to obey the computer here. You just vote on it. Lots of stuff like that. You know, the computer just serves as the straight edge, and then you decide where you want to put the marks and where you want to measure to, because the computer will take you right down to eating bugs and well, you probably shouldn't move either because if you want to save energy, then you don't get out of bed.
Wheatgrass and hemp are both probably less entropic than soy and bugs.
I gotta go, but thank you, Jen. It was nice talking to you, and Howie, same to you. Jen, someday you'll look back and laugh. I'm telling you right now.
I doubt that very much.
Are you ready to talk?
Thanks for joining. And
are you ready to talk to Eric Weinstein? That's what I want to know.
On your behalf, or on my own behalf?
Well, your own, because I want you to turn the model into like a real live 3D, 4D.
Then why the hell would I do that?
Because you'd be the first
you want
one
me to be your slave, basically, and it's
no,
like, wow. Wow, it's like,
No.
wow, like, like, do you have any self-awareness at all?
No, what I'm saying is you wouldn't want to do that?
I don't enjoy the idea that I'm being peer pressured into doing something. I
Okay, I'm sorry.
I can't even give you a definition of what it is you're trying to do other than get people to eat bugs and be terrorized at work with threats of being fired. So it's like, do I want to put my name on that and go talk to Eric Weinstein when Weinstein is a physicist and I'm a physicist, and it would appear that the logical thing to do would be for me to talk to him about physics, yet somehow that connection doesn't get made. It just seems like how
No, I
narcissistic can you be, basically?
no. It's not my theory here at all. Mine's just a commercial model, but I thought that it would be cool to put your stuff in through a computer with AI and everything, and it'd be awesome. Because yours is more accurate. Mine is just the rough commercial model. That's all. So no, it's all you there, Jen. I was just wondering. I thought that would be interesting for you, but no big deal at all.
Well, I'll get behind a theory if I can understand it, but I'm still not at a point where I accept the premises of your position. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
you got to accept that I've seen this before. Like, Buddha was like this. Like, anybody who thinks that they can rewrite the Veda and that they can basically create civilization is wrong.
Aha. So that's where we differ. We'll find out about that. Coming next week. Talk to you later, Jen. Thanks.
Thanks for joining. Howie, did you want to say anything before we say goodbye, or did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Not really, no. I actually wanted to come on and shitpost, but then I actually had something that I thought was kind of valid to say.
Well, what do you think of the idea?
I came in kind of late, but he was talking about having a some sort of software or computer that would determine efficiency and basically make choices for humanity. Is that right?
It's a diagram where it's like a rainbow where you have to like say how you feel about stuff. And that's
Oh, so it's the same thing that he's been talking about. Well, I think
the like overall arcing theme is like he wants a way to get a metric for someone's potential to be trusted, because he's rightly identified that you need trust to have society function on a certain level. Like, if you have really low trust, you can still have a society, but it's just going to function on a very low level. Like, you're not going to have necessarily safety or, security or whatever. The higher the trust, the more complex a society, the better it is for people who like that, but that's not everybody, right? So there's this.
I think that there's a lot of potential for his system to be manipulated very, very easily.
Yeah, me too. And like, you see how it's already being used, right? Like, you see how computers, which are neutral in some sense, you see how they get used for like things like censorship, like through the internet and whatnot. You can already see humans fucking this shit up.
Well, remember Tay AI?
Yeah, and you see shit like that, and then you have people who still think computers could become conscious, and it's like, that's not consciousness. That's just that's like what you call aggregated metadata. Like, I don't think Tay could pass the what do you call it, the Turing test.
Oh no, Tay could not pass the Turing test. There are artificial intelligences that have passed the Turing test, but I wouldn't eliminate the possibility of computers becoming conscious, but it's a long way off, and it would be pretty limited at the outset.
Well, our consciousness is a quantum computer. So if we wanted a conscious computer, we'd need to engineer a quantum computer that was sufficiently complex as to emulate consciousness. Now, why we would want to do that is unclear to me, because it seems a bit like a waste of time. Like, why would you? Well, we already have consciousness as humans. I don't think you're going to get better than that even if you make a computer that you can argue is conscious or can simulate consciousness, and how do you know what it would do and whether it would hurt you or something, right? Like,
Well, Thanatos is actually a pretty strong driving factor in humanity.
which is
The death drive. Thanatos is the Freudian name for the death drive.
which is the desire to
Human,
die.
sort of. It's the desire for pain, the desire for suffering, and the desire for self-destruction.
And you think that's a powerful human motivator?
Well, there's Thanatos and Eros. And Eros is the life drive. That's the drive for pleasurable things. The drive to be remembered and for sex and for food and all that.
Oh, I see. So humans are kind of like a combination of self-creation and self-destruction impulses?
Yeah, that's Freudian, though. That's a lot of Freud has been debunked, but I wouldn't say that the Thanatos Eros dichotomy has been debunked, though.
Well, it's probably true because a lot of people want to stop reincarnating, right? Like they want to stop reincarnating so much that they like delude themselves into thinking that they can go to heaven, right? That there's an example of the desire to destroy your life. So I guess you could model it that way. Definitely. Be,
There's also like risk-taking behaviors which are necessary to advance humanity as a whole as well as the individual. That would be part of Thanatos, but certain risk-taking behaviors would be driven by the Eros.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. That's cool. Yeah. All right, so I sent Duvid the link if you wanted to pop on, but I don't see him coming on, so maybe we'll wrap it up soon. We already had the combo. I guess I wish I could be more positive about this stuff, but it's like, what the hell do you expect? Like people want to influence other people. Like they want the results of influence. They don't want the work associated with it. Like it's very hard to influence people and it requires a lot of knowledge. And without it, you're just not going to be that influential. And you can fake it for a while, but it doesn't really last because if there's nothing substantial underlying it, it's not going to last. And there isn't anything substantial underlying our modern society right now other than greed and fear. And like that's long term, I think that's just going to bore people. Maybe they'll stop caring about dying.
I also wanted to point out something about Supra's ideas. Usually when you have something that's this really, really great idea, you don't present a half-finished idea to the public the way that he has been. Usually when you have this great idea and you're sure that it will work, you patent it first so that no one else can take it. And I don't think that Supra has done that.
And he says it's unpatentable.
That's bullshit. If this is his idea and he came up with it and he wants to make money off of it, he's going to have to patent it. Because if he doesn't, someone else can make the same thing and patent it, and then suddenly he loses all rights to it. He doesn't make any money off it.
Yeah, I think that's why it's like more than money that he's after. He's like trying to change how people look at money. And maybe that's a good intention to have, but it's pretty hard to do that, I think, because the money is like real in the sense that it buys you things. So what are you going to do? Just say, here's this imaginary thing that's not money and it has no value, but care about this instead of money? Like that's where it's unclear to me how that would work. at all.
Well, it's also like Tesla. Tesla actually invented the light bulb that the AC light bulb that we use today. But Edison was the one who patented it. Tesla knew that his invention would change the world. It would change the way people perceive the world. But he ended up not getting any of the credit. He ended up not getting any of the money. All because Edison got to the patent office first.
So you basically don't think he's serious because he hasn't A, done the work required, or B, patented the idea.
Well, he might be serious, but I don't know how serious he really is.
Yeah, I think maybe you have a point there. That's what I would do if I were him. But I mean, I do encourage people to, pursue their ideas and stuff. It's just like, at some point you want to have a conversation with other people and, maybe get them to consider your ideas. And doing that is something that takes, it's a skill set you got to build up. It's just like streaming. It's like people go into streaming thinking that they can just be, their regular self and it'll just be like real life. I don't know what they're thinking, but a lot of the people that come on the stream, they're not acknowledging that streaming is its own skill set. And Duvid and I talked about this a little bit. We didn't get a chance to get to it on the weekend review there, but I think if people look at things as new skill sets that they're learning, that will go a long way. Rather than they know everything and they're just here to like tell people this wonderful truth. It's like everybody's got their little magical theory of everything.
And speaking of the magical aspect of this, Supra's idea is this one size fits all type deal, and that's never worked out in the past. It might. I'm not saying it won't work out, but it has never worked out in the past.
I don't think it can work, honestly, just because there's too many differences between human groups. They're not all reconcilable. Like some people want to settle things with a fist fight, some people want to settle with a lawsuit. Like those two aren't reconcilable. So yeah, Aiken Drum is asking, does Kabbalistic theory fit into Wolfram through some sort of warped cellular automaton theory? I'm not really sure what you're asking here, Aiken. I'm not sure I understand that.
That sort of makes sense.
Really? What does it mean?
I'm not intimately familiar with Wolfram's theories, but I have some surface level understanding of it. I'm honestly not entirely sure how to answer that, though.
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one. I mean, because I don't know Kabbalistic theology myself. All I know is like physics.
I'm
and
a
how
lot
that
more
works.
familiar with the Kabbalah than I am with Wolfram.
Well, Wolfram is a guy who makes physics textbooks and has a physics website, and you can it can help you. He has this program that can help you solve equations and stuff. So he's a very accomplished physics author, as well as he has a platform that has this capacity to solve equations and stuff. That's who he is. So I think what he's referring to is that Duvid and I took a look at one of his books where they were illustrating it's a model, so you have to take your physical ingredients and reformat them into the model. You have to sort of line reality up with his model, and he's offering to do simulations with whatever input or something along those lines. So that might be interesting.
Well,
but yeah.
in that sense, Wolfram and Kabbalah are identical, because the Kabbalah is supposed to be this universal system of mysticism, and what happened back during the Middle Ages, when pagans were being persecuted, but Jews were not actually being persecuted. The Kabbalists would take pagan religion and integrate it into their system by relating the pagan concepts to concepts that already existed in Kabbalah.
Okay. So yeah, there's a claim that it's a unified, what is it? A universal mysticism system? Is that it?
Yeah, a universal system of mysticism.
Right. And so physics somehow fits in with that, with mysticism?
Well, what I'm making a note of is that what you just described about taking uh, physical concepts and integrating them into this system that Wolfram has established is very similar to the concept that of the Kabbalah integrating pagan concepts into Kabbalah.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Yeah, well, like it's a claim, and it's a question of whether people accept the claim, I guess. It's a bit of a stretch, I think. Not a claim that is people are going to accept just because it was made. But yeah,
I did
I,
actually read Wolfram's website recently, like the past 8 months or so. There was an article on his website about a unified field theory must be more simplistic than complex. That's basically what I gathered from it. He went very at length and in detail about his ideas on it, but the gist of it was a very simple thing, unifies quantum and uh, space-time gravity.
yeah. Why did he say that?
There was some observation that he made. I'd have to go back and find the article. It's been a couple months since I read it.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. That I agree with that. It should be as simple as possible because humans are just not all that smart, and we're filled with perception biases. So we have a bunch of things that hold us back from really being smart. So the simpler the model can be, the better. So we'll see where that goes.
There was a concept that was brought up by Terence McKenna that has actually been kind of eating away at me, and it was, what if humanity is not meant to understand the secrets of the universe? What if all these physical laws and stuff we just aren't meant to understand, especially the quantum laws?
Why would that bother you?
Oh, because I like understanding.
Also, you just discard his opinion as garbage.
Oh, no, I don't discard his opinion. I've been thinking about it, especially in terms of politics and its relation to science, because most people they don't seem to get science, like even at a basic level. And when you try to describe science that influences politics, or how science should influence politics, or how a political system is anti-science, people will just reject you outright.
That's because a lot of reasons. I guess science isn't really compelling enough because it doesn't have a high enough quality control. And I think we can all remember examples of abuse of science, right? Global warming, all this. So basically, the conclusion you could draw is that political interests distort science, which is a theoretical thing. Like it's a model, it's a method that's very good, but it can be abused. So the question is, how do you fix that? And the answer is people have to be smart enough to tell what the abuse is, and the reality is that they're not. So the solution is just to get some people who do understand and have everyone else listen to them.
Right, but going back to what McKenna said, and in relation to quantum physics, no one actually knows for sure why the quantum world is the way it is, and that's had me thinking about the unified field theory. And maybe we just will never actually get one because we're humans and we're very, very limited, and we're not capable of comprehending the universe at a high enough or perhaps a low enough level to unify the sciences in that way.
Well, my model's a unified field model, so I have done it. The question is whether other people can understand it.
Well, string theory is also a unified model, isn't it?
But it doesn't make predictions. It's not science. A unified field model that doesn't make predictions is worthless. So it doesn't even meet the criterion of being science. It is mysticism in that sense. So some of modern physics has become mysticism, which has caused it to become less credible. Because that's what mysticism is, smoke and mirrors largely. So,
well, there's also quantum loop theory, which does make testable predictions. But there's another point that what if both your theory and quantum loop theory come out and we test them, and neither one of the systems proves to be accurate?
well, what if anything? What if the world explodes right now? I've tested my system. It does make the predictions. It's more advanced than any comparative system, and it can predict
how do you
tons of
test
shit
your
that nothing
system?
else can. I check to see whether I can make all the predictions, and it can. Some predictions are much easier to make than others. So I just did a general test of the most difficult systems to predict and see if it could do it, and it can. So I assume for any simpler system, it would be very easy for it to work with it. You're trying to answer the question of, can you predict the universe? Can you give a series of formulas that will predict what we see right now? And my model can do that, so it already exists. But if no human can understand it, then Terence McKenna is right. If nobody gives a shit about my theory and nobody learns it, well, he's right. Because nobody cared enough to actually learn what was correct. They were just too attached to what was incorrect, and that was what they spent their time working on. So ultimately, it's up to people whether they want to have unified knowledge or not. It's up to you, really.
Actually, this kind of brought me back to thinking about Supra, because he claims, well, he's made a prediction about his system, and his prediction is, of course, that it will draw people out of their ruts of thought, essentially. And I really, really don't believe that will work. I think that any test of his system will end up just like any test of any other system to draw people out of their thinking patterns. It'll fail.
It'll what?
It'll fail.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think so, too. And that's the lesson, right? It's like there's only a few things that actually work, and they take a lot of work, and nothing else works. And the fact that people don't do what works shows that they're not really ready to be autonomous or self-governing. Can my system predict warfare? Yeah, it can give you what's the most likely place where a conflict of resources is going to happen. Yes. You just need to get the right information in, and you can model it pretty succinctly with just the direction in which trading goes. Like who is a net exporter versus net importer, and how the systems are maintained, right? Like how is American hegemony maintained? Right?
That also reminds me of McKenna again. McKenna, I don't know if you're aware of a lot of McKenna's work, but one of the things that McKenna did was create a piece of software called TimeWave Zero, which was essentially a map of high and low points across time.
Yeah,
And
so basically everybody has, like, a lot of people have these, like, crackpot theories that they think describe everything. You can find them everywhere. But they don't
Well,
actually, like, do they make the predictions or not? And the answer is no, they don't fucking make the predictions because these people don't even know how to phrase it in a sense that they could get predictions out of it. So Eternal Entropy is asking, I just want to address this question in the chat. It's not revelatory, it's purely scientific. Well, what do you mean by revelatory? Because traditionally, like, revealed knowledge is the supreme knowledge. So, but what does revealed mean? It means basically you yourself are so sensitive that you're able to perceive this divine wisdom that just exists in potential that's accessible but very difficult to access.
Well, with McKenna's time wave 0, it actually was very accurate up to a point. He matched his graph with the entire history of humankind, and it matched up pretty well. The down points matched up with like depressions and recessions, and the up points matched up with like the rises of empires and whatnot. And he claimed that if you put it to your own life, if you shrink the graph down to your own life scale, it would match up there as well. And a lot of people claimed that it did, but he claimed that the end of this time graph was 2012, December 21st, 2012. And obviously, you know, we survived past then. So
Yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. Eternal Entropy is asking, religion is revelatory. I fail to see how this is a theory of everything that has no link I can see with religion. Well, my ability to create this model comes from religion. So there's your answer. I mean, no one else could do it. You got crackpot models. You got pseudo mysticism coming out of physics, but that's not actually giving people deeper knowledge. It's just paralyzing them into thinking that they know something. Oh my God, I'm so smart. I know what string theory is. It's like, that doesn't make you smart, but that's, you know, that's how people are. They want the appearance of certain things without actually embodying them, sadly. So that's just going to be a perpetual human problem.
Would I be able to? You said I could. You said your theory can predict things, given the proper information is input. Is that information on your blog?
I don't think I've actually explained the model step by step on the blog, but if there's a particular thing, if there's a particular question, I can answer it in the language of my theory. I don't think I've actually gone through and written out the theory because that would probably involve equations, which would probably involve me having to like invent a mathematical system that I don't really want to do that.
Well, can I ask, what do you think is going to happen for the rest of this year?
The deciding factor is what happens with the JP Morgan RICO investigation. Are you familiar with this?
I didn't even hear about that.
So the way my system works is essentially an analysis system where you look at a particular subset of the universe, because we can't really assimilate the entire universe, right? I think even I can't do that. Like, there's always going to be information out there that I don't have access to, right? But basically, you know, you're looking at it as a bunch of currents of human will. So you take human will as a given, and you say everybody has a will to essentially replicate, which is what JF says. And then you subdivide that will up into like various compartmentalizations, as well as one's capacity to act on one's will, because the subset of humanity capable of acting on their own will is very small. So really what you want to do is isolate essentially action bottlenecks. Okay? Which requires you to have a basic idea of like the culture of whatever movement is going to be the one ultimately responsible for wherever things go, right? So you have a couple of things. You have a run on precious metals going on at the COMEX. You have a RICO investigation into JP Morgan, which has the largest silver hoard in history. And you have Trump, who is making claims like, you might not see me a while because a lot of people hate me. Okay, so those factors are my informational bottlenecks. So I can't get on the other side of that, but I can tell you that those things are going to be what determines what happens in 2020. In all likelihood, silver is going to go to a new all-time high, and so is gold. And the US dollar is going to continue its trajectory downwards, but that will be obfuscated by the fact that you understand how the US petrodollar works, yes?
For the most part, yeah.
So you understand basically, like, just for those in the audience who don't know, basically you have to pay US dollars for what they call sweet light crude or crude oil or petroproducts or whatever. The basic ingredient is sweet light crude, and then you get all your other petroproducts from that, and then yeah, you got to pay for that in US dollars. So this creates a demand for US dollars because there's a demand for petrol products, right? Fair enough?
Yeah, that's fair.
So other currencies that have undergone hyperinflation only had a regional valuation, right? Like pesos only work as tender in Mexico, for example, right? Whereas the US is already sort of ensconced in the global markets via its petrodollar. That's where the wars are going to start to break out, when people start saying, go fuck yourself, petrodollar, which again, your information bottleneck is going to come down to who's running the financial system of the country that militarily starts to flex on USA. So
Well,
again,
isn't that
I
what
don't
happened
know,
with
like,
the
so
Arab
do you
Spring?
see how my model is only as good as the information that I get? Like, but basically it can immediately point to the information bottlenecks.
Yeah, I see that. But what you just described, isn't that a lot like the Arab Spring, where a lot of Arab nations tried to throw off the US dollar and go back
Absolutely.
like gold back?
Absolutely, yeah, and this is where historical inquiry is so important, and literally historical science, because what you're trying to do is over time get a better model to approximate human motives. Because if you understand the motives, then what happens physically, materially is way more obvious, and it makes it a lot easier to predict the future if you can understand both the present and the past. And what Howie's talking about here is this idea of cyclicity in history, right? Like, everything is cycles, not to sound like a pothead, but everything is cyclic in some sense. Like, the earth goes around the sun in a cycle, the days are cycles, and things like human conflict, like what Howie just mentioned with the Arab Spring, is part of some type of human cycle. And so you have all these different things that you have to learn how to read the patterns, basically. And I've got an article, I think, I don't actually know if I published this one, because I have a bunch of articles that, like, I half write and then I realize they're just not good enough to publish. So I don't even remember if I published this one. But I just have to look. No, I don't think I did. Sorry. But I did have this very interesting meme that I had, which talks about subdividing time into it's like a 10-fold subdivision of a time interval, and then the first 4 units, you look at the first 4 units, then the first 3, then the next 3, then the next 2, then the next 1. 4, 3, 2, 1 equals 10. So it's a way of subdividing an interval into 4 subintervals of unequal size, and you'll find that those causality, uninterrupted causality, will follow that generic pattern. So if there's a cause, on an uninterrupted cause, it will produce an effect at a later time, and then it will produce another effect at a shorter interval in a 4-to-3 ratio, because the secondary effect amplifies the primary one. So this is an example of how you could approach science, and then we could look at history and say, okay, well, there's this cycle of, like, conflict over petroleum, and we've seen it go through a couple of iterations. Maybe we can predict the next one. So that would be how my model would approach science. It's basically, history. It's basically like modeling humans as entities that have a desire to act, and then getting, like, statistics on motives. And by doing that, I've been able to isolate what I call the information bottlenecks, where I can say that, like, this is as much as I know, but if I knew more, I could tell you, I could predict it with more accuracy. So rather than getting a me saying, oh, we're going to go to war on, November like 30th or whatever. Like, I can't get it down to that arbitrary precision, but I could if I had the information. It's all about knowing what information is like what data is giving you actual knowledge about a system versus what is just noise. It's all about separating noise from signal. But basically, the philosophical approach is one of subdividing universal systems into subsystems and then analyzing the subdivisions. I don't know if that was too much information or what, but
no, that was just the right amount of information, actually.
Well, I like that you have a background in math and stuff, because I do too, and you can appreciate the intrinsic value of mathematics, right? Like, even if people have their disagreements on math, we can both say math has got something going for it, right? Obviously.
So using your system, what would you say the likelihood that Earth is visited by aliens this year?
0.
And,
Unless, I mean, it could be a fake aliens. Fake aliens is always a possibility. In fact, I was given data that indicated that there were focus groups doing analysis on the possibility of faking an alien invasion to avoid Trump getting elected. I don't know if that was real or not, but I have the documents.
Well, Stephen Greer has actually spoken about a possible fake alien invasion since about 2001. He's been speaking about that.
I don't see it happening, because then it would be like, that doesn't seem to be the path that the elites are taking, because that's an all-in move. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they certainly seem to be going all in right now. Well, at least as far in as they can with trying to prevent another Trump presidency.
Well, going all in on the level of coronavirus and going all in on the level of fake aliens is not the same tack, right? So the fact that they did the coronavirus thing means that they probably don't think they can get away with fake aliens.
Or possibly they're just exhausting their ideas before they move on to fake aliens.
Well, if they do fake aliens and it doesn't work, that's what I'm saying. They're fucked, right? So I don't think they would take that risk. I could be wrong, but I just, given the internet and given all the information that's available, like, and given the fact that the plan's already been doxed so many times, I don't see people like, does the public go along with the corona narrative? I feel like, I look at some of these comment sections. Like, I saw a comment section on a guy talking about, like, literally nothing to do with coronavirus. It was talking about precious metals investing. And he had made one comment about coronavirus and how he was upset about, like, it was disrupting everything. And it's like a series of comments on the video saying, I can't believe how bad your judgment is that you think this is real and blah, 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 blah. And that was like the tone. So if the average person doesn't even accept coronavirus, why the fuck would anybody accept fake aliens?
In all honesty, I'm not sure how many people do accept coronavirus's validity. I see quite a few people posting about coronavirus and with sincerity just saying, it doesn't matter if it's fake or not, just wear the mask.
Wow, that's a whole new level of mind-boggling, well, what would you call that? Because people want to be dictators, I guess. Put on the mask, bigot!
They're Karens.
We have to do something about these Karens.
Oh, I saw a meme. I'm not sure if it was real or not, but it was it it was a meme that was a CNN article, and it said, "If you don't smoke crack, you're a racist."
That is just. See, the thing is, like, it could be real, right? Like, that's like, it may be just a meme, but things are so crazy, but that it could be real, right? It's just like,
Yeah, and it, especially from CNN, that definitely is something I could see CNN publishing.
Yeah. But yeah, like, if you wanted to see an example of how my theory works in the most, like in the most readily applicable way would probably be for me to show you how it predicts chemical reactions, because it doesn't predict them the same way that the current model does. It does much
Well,
more
that
accurate.
would be really interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because like it's all about entropy basically. So like, you know, the noble gases, how they have
Yeah.
a particular electronic configuration that minimizes the reactivity.
Yeah, 8 valence electrons.
Yeah, it's not just 8. 8 is the one for the second and third period. But yeah, usually when it's taught in high school, the lesson is like 8 valence electrons, because that's going to dictate the majority of your biological reactions, right? But it doesn't quite even do it, because there's some problems with it, like because water, according to that model, water should be a linear molecule. And I don't think it really predicts the states of boron very accurately. If you look into boron, it doesn't. But what my model does is it gives you a statistical thermodynamic type microstate analysis, where you can look at the distributions and tell by their numerology which one is the most likely reaction to happen. Because the way reactions happen is that electrons always reconfigure as to emulate these noble gas states. So that's the general pattern, whereas the specific pattern is the octet rule. And the octet rule has like a limited range of predictability, whereas my model makes the predictions on all the levels. Because you can look at like, you know, why is gold non-reactive? Why are all the elements in that period of what is it, gold, silver, etc., why are they all so unreactive? Well, my model will show you why in an electronic array, and saying like, out of all the possible microstates in this region, this was the highest energy microstate, and therefore it's the least reactive, and etc., etc. So it's basically a way of giving you all the possible reactions that could happen and then ranking them in order of probability of happening. And the interesting thing is that we do live in a quantum mechanical universe, so multiple reactions can happen simultaneously because they both have a non-zero probability of happening. And the probability of a reaction happening all depends on the inner energy of a system. So you can actually add energy to a system and shift the range of reactions that are possible. Now, obviously, science already understands this, but my model goes a step further with this unifying field, where it's actually telling you, it's plucking out of that geometry, why are these reactions the most preferred ones. It also, using this approach, you can build life. You can show why life arises, because it's a series of steps in chemicals that are themselves the energetic geodesics, i.e. the fastest and easiest, most efficient way for entropy to increase. Eternal entropy asks if my model has been put to test in any specific fields. Well, I talked to JF several times, and I gotta say, a lot of respect for his willingness to talk to me in the first place. I think that's great. And I think that, you know, you can watch the exchanges yourself. I do think he's becoming more open to the idea, but I think we're more at the stage of people just sort of opening up to it. Like, the model has I've already seen people use things like, I don't know if they took it from the model or if they came up with it on their own, but there were some people that won a math test where they did a space filler that had to do with this exact geometric approximation of space. That won a contest. There are other results that come out of modern cosmological science that line up with the predictions of my theory. So I don't know of any scientist that's actually, quote, tested my theory, but you don't really need to test it because we know most of this stuff already. We know what the Gibbs free energy is, right? So do you know what that means, Gibbs free energy? Howie?
Gives free energy?
No, GIBBS.
Gibbs is a person?
Yeah, it's basically a number associated with every reaction that tells you the net heat energy exchange in the process of that reaction. So the idea is that if the reaction is proceeding forward, it has a certain number of kilojoules. If it's proceeding in the reverse, the sign of that number of kilojoules is just reversed, right? So if it's negative 500 joules or whatever on one way, it's positive 500 on the other way. It's basically a number representing the inner heat potential of various chemical transitions. so that we have Gibbs free energy. So that's basically for most elements, we already know that stuff. So all we'd be doing is generating the statistical geometries, and then we'd be saying, oh yeah, here's your statistical geometry that explains why this reaction does this, and it's the best one. And then using the statistics, we can find possibly better reactions, more efficient reactions, because we can use a computer to just simulate all the possible reactions and their associated energies. And by modeling it correctly, the problem we've had in quantum mechanics where we can't model multi-entity systems, that is solved because you're actually including the information about the universal geometry, which is held in the quantum periodic table, into your calculations in the first place.
Can I run a very out there idea by you?
Sure.
Okay. First off, are you familiar with what a fuser is?
I've never heard that word. No.
Okay. Basically, it's a nuclear fusion reactor at a very small scale. There's only ever been small scale versions of these built. But basically, I'd have to go back over the information, but it's like a nuclear fusion reactor that creates a visible cloud of plasma within a glass jar. And if you have filaments in there, it will actually transpose the filament onto another object within the jar. They're
That's
very cool
awesome
to look at. They're very cool to look at. But I was imagining an experiment with a fuser using bismuth filament.
That'd be awesome. If I had the means, I would definitely encourage you to pursue your what is it, scientific experiment, because like we could literally get, I'm not saying we could do fusion, because fusion comes about, there is energy that's released on fusion, but it comes about from uncertainty, and uncertainty is hard to work with because you're in a gray area by definition. So you cannot predict the exact outcome of your experiment. You can only predict a range of values. So the question is, can we precipitate uncertainty effects with sufficient accuracy as to funnel the resulting waveform into something we control completely? Like, because you're going to get an interval of values when you're dealing with uncertainty effects. And the question is, can we make that interval small enough that we don't kill ourselves in the process of accessing this tremendous energy that comes about from fusion? And I think using my model will get a lot closer, because my model predicts fusion in a very intuitive way. Well, as intuitive as uncertainty gets. Uncertainty is pretty hard to wrap your head around, but once you get it, you get it.
Yeah, these devices, these fusers, you can actually build them for very, very cheap. There are actually YouTube channels of people building them using 2 microwave transistors and glass jars and vacuum pumps.
That sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? I bet the audience would love to see us do experiments like that, wouldn't they? I sure would.
They look really cool, too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we should totally make science cool again. Like, fuck Bill Nye. Like, we could do so much cool shit with science, like make the stuff they do now look boring.
Bill Nye was cool back in the day, but he...
Yeah, when we were kids, maybe.
Obviously.
Yeah, when we were 6 years old, we thought Bill Nye was really cool.
Bill Nye was the shit back in the day.
He was the science guy. Science rules.
Bill Nye.
Bill. Okay, on that note, I think I'm going to wrap it up and go grab something to eat. But it's been a great convo. And please, if you can, think of some more questions, and I will answer them in the formalism of my theory, because I really do appreciate taking the theory out for some exercise. And for the sociological stuff, I know it's hard for people to draw that direct link as to how I draw my conclusions, but the conclusions speak for themselves, and you can read the blog to get an idea. of how I approach things, but it's just as much art as science, because I'm essentially like a thermometer, a diagnostic tool. So I have to do my own calibration, and that's ultimately where your bottleneck of capacity resides within any person. So did you have any final words for us before we wrap it up, and hope to see you again real soon on another stream?
I don't really have anything else to say. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Howie. We'll talk to you again soon. And to the audience, thank you very much for paying attention to our chat. I really have to hand it to the audience. It seems like people are actually listening and asking relevant questions. So thank you so much. I can't put a price tag on it, but I certainly value it greatly that people are willing to A, ask questions, and B, furnish their own opinions. It's really great to see people. Eternal Entropy, Aiken Drum, Truth and Doubt, another guy is a good guy, known him for a little while. Nice to see him, really appreciate it. Obviously, Rook, long time favorite. Everybody else, thanks for showing up to Vid, and anybody I missed, apologies. But yeah, we really appreciate it, and thanks to Supra Librix and Howie for coming on to make the show a success. We'll talk to everyone Sunday at 8 Eastern, if not sooner. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, that's just so to say, a worthless opinion of.
It's so important that she can't be told, she won't be told that it's wrong. And
bringing it back to Church of Entropy and her attack dog Gandalf the White.
Why don't you learn to shut up and fuck goddamn logic?
They control the media, and the media is capable of making the sheeple believe in anything.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, we've had these streams, and I've been doing with Church of Entropy, and she's been bringing on new people, and like we did those streams on like stream etiquette. We walked through like the technology.
I have like very strongly negative opinions of the kind of Brundle clique.
Is she trying to garner herself cult prestige by associating herself with a retard?